Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it is the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the MOA Broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, we got a fantastic show lined up for today. All kinds of good information as usual. Let's go ahead and jump into our highlights here. This is episode 37 of the Make It Out Alive broadcast with your host, Sam Wilson. We don't have our black shopcat with us today, Cobra. He is still teething, and although he has calmed down, he only has one or two side teeth left to go. We'll bring him in maybe tomorrow night or Thursday night's episode or whatever else, Friday morning's episode, and see if we can do that. But rest assured, he is doing well, eating good, and in good spirits. Show highlights today. We have a cruise ship brawl gone wrong. Over what? Over chicken tenders. We'll do that story first, but can you imagine being on a cruise ship and all of a sudden a brawl breaks out, and then you find out it's allegedly over chicken tenders? We have animal attacks today, both gator and bear attacks. And we continue the great carbon versus stainless steel debate. I got some feedback and some emails over the last episode or the one before, whenever it was we talked about stainless steel. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into that, and then we'll see where that goes. That'll be in today's episode as well. And finally, a bartender turned into Freddy Krueger when a customer doesn't pay his tab. You have all that and more to look forward to, folks, in today's episode of the MOA Broadcast. Okay. So interestingly enough, I encourage people to get this, listen to the podcast. It's available on our website. And again, if you have any feedback, questions, whatever else, commentary you'd like to make, let us know an idea for a future show segment or whatever, you can send us an email at info@gearconvoy.com, and that will get to me, and then we can, go from there and check it out. We also have all the episodes. If you go to www.gearconvoy.com, you can find all the episodes. There's a tab at the top for the MOA broadcast and books. We have our book, Combat Cat, The Rise of the Felix Unit. You may want to check that out. You can get it on Amazon, and there's a link there in the in that tab. But they're all the episodes of the MOA broadcast as well, so you can listen to them there. They're actually linked to Spotify from there. And now, although I do encourage you, go to Spotify. I'm not a big fan of extra apps and having accounts. You don't even have to have. I think you have to create an account using just your email address, but it's free at Spotify.com or whatever the address is. You can find that very easily. I like Spotify, though. It's very easy to navigate. Once you figure it out, it's very, very simple. And you can keep abreast of all the episodes, download them from there. And the other thing is that allows us to keep track of the analytics. Analytics are very important for a show because that lets us know, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Who is or isn't listening to the show, hearing it, and, for how long and so forth. And that helps us really to produce and create better content and a better show for you, our listeners, who are our supporters. Now, what we've been doing is we've been having the video episode, the 1 hour weekly episode. It turns out people like consuming this in shorter 30 to 35 minute segments. So we've been doing that. We'll still have the occasional long episode, but you can get all of that at gearconvoy.com. There are links to Spotify from there, and you can listen to their players, a player for all the episodes on Gear Convoy if you don't like going to third-party websites and apps and all that kind of stuff. So check that out. Now, what we did want to update is, before, what we've been doing is providing the once weekly video episodes to our Patreon subscribers. Patreon subscribers subscribe and pledge anywhere from $1 to $5 or $10 a month, and that helps to support this show and make it worthwhile to do and produce all this content. We now have, like I said, the video episodes. We're getting in graphics and other images and things in that, and it's turning into be a pretty good product from all the feedback that we're getting. So I'm very proud of that. You don't have to subscribe, though. If you want to, you can. If you don't, that's fine. The podcast is still going to be free to everyone. And once we make the video version available early for our Patreon subscribers, because that's what they get for supporting the show. The video will then eventually be uploaded to Spotify and then probably the YouTube accounts as well, so you can catch it on any one of those outlets. But we encourage you, please use the Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever else, be Amazon. There are a number of different large podcast platforms that helps us to compile our analytics, and it really helps us to make a better show. So that being said, do whatever you want. We'll be getting those video episodes available on Spotify, and then that means they'll be available on the Gear Convoy website as well. So there you go. Now, the other interesting thing is analytics show that most people are listening to this show or at least downloading it early in the morning here in the United States. So that means that most of you that are downloading this, or at least a good number of you that are downloading or listening to this show, are doing this early in the morning between 5 and 9 a.m. seem to be the target, interestingly enough, although that makes sense. People getting ready for work or heading off to work or before they go to work, whatever. So hopefully you're enjoying a delicious cup of coffee and you've got a great day ahead of you. Now, interestingly enough, analytics also show, and I'll be honest, this surprises me, I have a surprisingly good percentage of female listeners. Which, I mean, I don't say anything against women, but, sometimes it can be a bit much for some women to handle whenever you speak the truth. So we'll probably lost a few right there. Only some women, though. Real women don't have a problem with the truth, just like real men don't. Guys, believe me, there are just as many weak-minded men in the U.S. or around the world as there are women. One of the problems is everybody wants to be treated like a real man. But the problem is when you give them real talk, when you tell them the facts and say, hey, this isn't working, or you're doing something wrong, you're making a mistake, whatever, when they get checked or corrected a little bit, most men, or a lot of men, a very large percentage nowadays, they can't handle it. And I'll tell you this, I have been making knives for going on, I've mentioned this a number of times, going on 15 years now. Hang on, let me check my things. Okay, we're rolling on that too. Good. Got to make sure the video is synced with the audio and all that kind of junk. I've been making knives for going on 15 years now, and I do not think that I'm infallible. I do not think I'm special, but I have been feeding myself, my family, whatever you want to call it, for going on 15 years now by making knives. Okay. I happen to know what I'm doing. I'm a pretty driven individual. I'm a pretty technical person. I like to educate myself a lot. So I make mistakes like anybody, but in general, if you find, that I'm digging in on a subject and standing my ground, it's because I've done the research. What we find on stuff like social media and the forums, I'm not even talking about random social media encounters. I'm talking about like discussions and debates you might have like on forums, is people that have no idea what they're talking about. But because, hey, I'm a man, I know what I'm doing, don't tell me otherwise, I'm right because I make, this amount of money a year, or I own this many types of knives, whatever. The minute you tell some of these people that, no, that's incorrect, even if you do it very respectfully, maybe it's a technical and metallurgical aspect, no, that particular steel doesn't have that alloying element, or no, it's not going to perform like this under these circumstances. Some of these guys literally melt down. They have zero control over their emotions and feelings. So I do not have a problem with men. I don't have a problem with women at all, but we are seeing a decreasing number of truly mature individuals. And we see this in the workplace all the time. People get corrected even a little bit and they can't handle it. They literally become unglued. No one's going to tell me. How many times have you heard that? If you're ever in a managerial or supervisory position, no one's going to tell me this or that. And it's a real problem. So anyway, that's that's where that's going from. But I have a surprise. I had a surprisingly good amount of female listeners as well for the show. Although that may change here in a minute when we get to our next story. But we'll see. Hang on while I have a sip. So that being said, hopefully you're having a delicious cup of coffee. You're easing into the day and you're getting ready to go out there and attack it. Get to work and take care of business. Male, female, mother, father, whatever it is, whatever you got going on in your situation, get out there and take care of business. Now, for dinner last night, had grilled steak, and by grilled, I mean pan-fried steak. So there is the choo-choo train here at 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon. That's about 400 meters away or so, give or take, from my house. There it is. My favorite way to prepare a steak now, if I have charcoal, a flame grilled steak is amazing. Okay, make no mistake, flame grilled is fantastic. Delicious flavor. You can't get the charcoal flavor from any other way, really, not truly. But it's not always, convenient to go out there and get charcoal going that, 15, 20, 30 minutes to dig everything out, let the charcoal get ready and so forth, and then, grill the steak and cook it and so forth. So, there are two practical ways to do this, really. And one is to do a griddle, or the other is to pan fry the steak. I like to pan fry a steak in butter. I used to use cast iron a lot for this purpose, but it takes longer to get heated up, and it's a little bit more challenging to clean. Not much, but a little bit. Now I like to use a stainless steel pan. A stainless steel pan with avocado oil. This is not difficult to do. I've had a number of emails about this whenever I talk about grilling a steak. Here's what I do briefly. I have an electric stove. I wish I had gas, but it's not an option here, so it is what it is. So I have an electric stove. I have a stainless steel pan. It's like a 10 or a 12 inch. I think it's 12. Large pan with a lid. And I turn the stove to number 5, 5.5, something like that. It doesn't take as much heat. A lot of videos and stuff will tell you got to have this thing just ripping hot. You do not have to do that to get a good sear. So I will turn to 5 or 5.5, and then I will put some avocado oil in there, a healthy amount of not a puddle, but a healthy amount. And then after it comes to temp, which is, a couple of minutes. And you can, honestly, you would check it if you're not familiar with your particular setup beforehand. Before you put the oil in, you're going to go ahead and throw a handful, a couple of droplets of water in there when you think it's ready. And you can look it up. There's a term for the whole effect and everything else. But the bottom line is, whenever the little balls of water dance around instead of just going flat and dissipating, that's when it's ready. Okay? Anyways, avocado oil, whenever it's fully up to temp, put the seasoned steak. You only want to season the steak about 2 to 5 minutes before you put it on there. Otherwise, if you season it for longer and let it sit 15, 20, 30 minutes, what's going to happen is that salt on the surface, I like a very, very coarse ground salt. That salt on the surface will draw the moisture of the steak to the surface. And then when you put it in there and start to pan fry it and sear it, you're not going to get a good sear because of the moisture. You want a dry steak. Some people even go so far as to pat it dry with a paper towel before they cook it. You don't have to do that in most cases, but regardless, go ahead and season it right before you get ready to put it in is how I do it. Salt and a little bit of cracked black pepper. And I like my salt and the pepper very coarse. Go ahead and put it in there about 2.5 minutes on one side, and you turn it over. You're going to have a beautiful sear and a crisp on there that you can hear when you scrape your knife across there. That's all it takes. Then you turn the other side for another 2.5 minutes, whatever, depending on how well you want it cooked. Now, if it has a nice fat cap, I love a New York strip with a nice fat cap on the side there. I will take and put a little bit of cracked salt and or pepper, or what also tastes really good is a little bit of Old Bay seasoning. I put the Old Bay just on the fat cap, and the first thing I will do is turn the steak sideways and just sit there and put the fat cap onto the pan and let that sizzle for about a minute or so. And it helps to render that fat and get that seasoning worked in nice and deep into that fat, and then go about with grilling your steak. Delicious. Anyway, I'm going to get aside from here, and I love basmati rice with that. But we'll keep moving forward. I'm going to lose my whole show here if I don't keep moving. I got one of those Blackstone griddles. A griddle is a very fantastic, a very versatile tool for cooking. I got a Blackstone griddle from Walmart, I don't know, about a year ago, something like that. They were having a special sale on it, yada, yada, yada. It was extremely cheap. And I got a griddle. It was like a 22-inch Blackstone griddle. Now, those were great. At the time, I was running a hot dog and hamburger stand. It's a long story, but the griddle was great for that, for doing hot dogs, hamburgers, grilled cheese, and so forth. Now, my gripe is, and this is where I thought I might lose some female listeners, the terminology that we're forced to use, or that some people try and force you to use. It's up to you what you want to do. If you're willing to take the heat, I've been taking the heat my whole life, so I don't really care. But if you're willing to take the heat, or not, however you want to do it, politically correct speech has been a disaster. And I think most people are now getting to where they're fed up with it. They would rather just hear the truth and let's move on, deal with your feelings later and personally, like we did it for the last couple thousand years. The other day I was in Walmart and I had my dog, Bacon. He's a beautiful white pointer. He's got nice brown, liver colored spots. Beautiful dog. Everybody loves him. And he's a good boy. Anyway, he's tied to my cart. So I was going through Walmart getting a few things. I don't like going and shopping in Walmart if I don't have to. But I found myself there are certain things that I have to get there due to limited shopping options here in the middle of nowhere in Southern Oregon where I live. Now, I turned down this aisle onto the main aisle, and I got stuck behind this lady who was enormously fat. She was morbidly obese. And the fact that she's female doesn't really matter to the story. I'm just a very particular person. I believe in being very descriptive. So I'm stuck behind this morbidly obese person who is massively fat. And I'm not trying to make fun of her, but she was, to give you an idea, she was so fat that the platform on this mobility scooter was literally bending under her weight. And you could hear the wheels or the motor or whatever it was whining as it was trying to make its way across the aisle. And I'm not even being funny at this point. Now, my problem is I got stuck behind this lady. She knew I've got my dog tied to my cart, the handlebar of the cart. She knew I was behind because I saw her look past and see me. And the aisle was wide, but it wasn't wide enough for me to pass her real quickly because, again, I had my dog tied to my cart, so I couldn't just zip around her. This lady was doing like a half a mile an hour as I was trying to get past her to go get my shopping done. And she knew I was back there, and you could tell she enjoyed this momentary position of power that she, was experiencing, because whenever I finally got past her, I made sure and looked her right in the eye, and she just gave me this and I'll be very radio friendly here, this very snotty look that told me she knew exactly what she was doing. And, this entitlement in America is out of control. This lady was deliberately slowing down just to enjoy a temporary sense of power over me as I was just walking, through the store to get my groceries. It was almost like in COVID. If you recall, I'll never forget this one experience I had in the early days of COVID when everybody was going buck wild. I was going through a grocery store and I had one of those ridiculously worthless for this purpose paper surgical mask over my face because you had to have it to enter the store. I was living in Portland at the time. Excuse me. If you didn't have a mask on, they would literally, they would go bonkers. They would call the cops on you. It was insane. So I'm walking around the store. I didn't have a beard at that time, but I have my mustache. And for those of you who have facial hair, you know that particularly a mustache, because it's pointed down, it would pull your mask down. So my mask got pulled to the tip of my nose. My nose wasn't even fully exposed yet. And this little old lady, she had to be in her 70s. She was under 100 pounds and 70-something years old. And she got in my face and I'm about 6 foot, 200 and something, 215, 220 pounds at the time. Not that that's anything special, but I was much larger and younger than her. And she started yelling and wagging her finger in my face like she was going to take me down to the ground over not wearing this mask. Now, I don't care what your thoughts are on the politics of the mask, on the science of the mask. My point was just that sometimes there are good reasons why some people should never have authority or power. And when they get a little taste of it, they go buck wild. Just like that lady with the mask, and just like the lady on the mobility scooter who was literally bending the iron framework or steel framework of this mobility scooter because of her weight. Now, what is the point? Using the word fat to describe people has suddenly become taboo and out of fashion. Let me just share briefly with you online. If we go, these are a list of names, just a short list of names that are associated with groups or associations that help to advance the rights of morbidly obese people or obese people. Okay? So here we go. The NAAFA, the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance. The Association for Size Diversity and Health. The Coalition for Fat Identities. Fat Legal Advocacy, Rights, and Education. The National Organization of Lesbians of Every Size. I won't even say anything. And then finally, where'd the other one go? The Coalition for Fat Identities. My point is just, people are getting bent out of shape for using the word fat when people are clearly obese and way overweight. But there are all these organizations that are designed to help them with their quote unquote, I don't know if they have any special right that they don't, constitutionally speaking, that use the word fat in the name. So what is that? I don't know. What I swear, sometimes you don't know what side of the looking glass you're on, Alice, as you look into this stuff. And it's like, okay, you're not supposed to say the word fat, but there's the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance. There you go, folks. You do with that information what you will here at the MOA Broadcast. We don't tell you what to think, and we don't, if we give you our opinion, we mark it as such and make it clear. We just give you the data and you make your own decisions. Now let's get on to our news stories before we spend all of our time. We've already spent way too much time with us. We're going to have to do a whole other show. We go to the New York Post. Disturbing video captures moment a wild Carnival cruise ship brawl breaks out over chicken tenders. Disturbing footage captured the moment a massive melee broke out on a Carnival cruise ship among fuming passengers, seemingly upset over chicken tenders. The violence among about 24 brawlers, 24 people brawling, erupted aboard the Sunshine, aptly named, at about 2 a.m. Monday, the last day of its voyage, as the ship was heading back to Miami, according to passengers who filmed the mayhem. Where the is security? One bystander could be heard yelling in the footage as passengers trade blows and slam each other to the floor. The story comes to us via the New York Post. Multiple security guards could be seen trying to break up the fight, with one overwhelmed officer fleeing the chaos and reaching for his radio as shoes went flying. Someone could be heard shouting, "Where is my chicken wing tenders? If I don't get my chicken, I'm going to have to up in this," followed by a shout of. According to another source, some of these posts were taken off social media for context. Bronx content creator Mike Terra, who filmed the uproar and shared it on his social media channels, captioned his video, "I always hear Carnival is ghetto ratchet. I've been cruising for years, but this is my first time seeing some action on a ship I was on. Was tripping." It remains unclear what sparked the commotion. Carnival did not immediately respond to the New York Post's request for comment. Okay, folks, just remember, keep that in mind if you decide to go on a cruise with Carnival. Allegedly. Okay, we're going to get into the stainless steel and carbon steel debate. Again, some people were dissatisfied or had some issues with what I said before. Number one, no one said I was wrong. A couple of episodes ago, we talked about the using carbon steel versus stainless steel for outdoor and bushcraft and survival knives. None of the emails said that I was wrong or provided any data to correct what I said, but some people got in their feelings a little bit, which is understandable. We're not going to use names, and I'm not calling anybody out. Guys, you got to understand, stainless steel has come a very, very long way in the last couple of years, and carbon steel hasn't changed much in the last almost half century, okay? Excuse me. First off, use whatever you want. No one's saying having a carbon steel knife is wrong. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is stainless steel has now come a very, very long way, and it now will do almost all, if not all, of the things that carbon steel has done for a very long time and do it better in most cases. There are a few isolated cases where a particular steel applied to a particular situation will give you a superior result or outcome. But in general, a good quality stainless, and this is why it's important to not just select the knife you want. Go to the maker that you are interested in and who works with the type of steel that you like, then get the knife that you want in many cases. So let's see, what do we have on here? There are no real practical benefits in most cases, or not many practical benefits to carbon steel. The biggest practical benefit that carbon steel over stainless steel provides, and for those of you not in the knife industry or that don't use knives for outdoors and bushcraft and stuff like that, carbon steel is basically like the old style knives that we used to have for the last several hundred years before stainless came along, that will rust readily. They're not inferior steels necessarily as far as general use. They may not have the edge holding capabilities and so forth. They're perfectly serviceable, and put it like that. But they do rust readily. Stainless, the primary advantage stainless gives is it doesn't rust, okay? And that also allows you to use blasted finishes and a number of other things. But the bottom line is they don't rust as readily, nearly as readily as carbon steels. Now, for a while, especially during the early inception of stainless steels, the stainless steel, the matrix, and I mean, I use that word, metallurgically, it was not quite refined enough. They didn't have the right alloy and the right alloying elements to really get it nailed down. And then they didn't have the right heat treat protocol to get the most out of the steel. So it was kind of a trade-off. You got stainless, but you didn't have durability. You didn't have other things that carbon steel provided. Now, guys, that window is largely past. We are now in a situation where good stainless steels, heat treated at a high hardness, have phenomenal edge holding capabilities, okay, and durability capabilities. They're fantastic. Again, if you want to use carbon steel, go for it. No one's saying you're wrong or that it's stupid. It's just that if you want to get a good stainless version of a knife, they are readily available. The other thing we see a lot is debates and discussion on forums, online forums about the outdoors, about bushcraft, about knives and so forth. Guys inevitably talk about knives a lot, and they compare. Oh, I've had this knife. Let me just tell you something. Using the scientific method, if you compare knife A from manufacturer B to knife F of manufacturer G, and the only characteristic they have in common is the same steel, that comparison means next to nothing. To truly be an apt and accurate comparison, you have to have the same blade shape, the same profile, the same grind, the same hardness, the same steel, the same edge geometry and everything else, and then the same testing protocol to truly understand the differences to compare and contrast different steels, okay? So if you use different manufacturers and different knives, but they have the same steel, that comparison means almost nothing, okay? And that really boils down to what we do here at Wilson Custom Knives and at Gear Convoy and Techline Knives. What we do is we take, whether you are a carbon or a stainless steel person, we do use carbon steel or a type of tool steel 3V, which is a great steel. I like it. It's very, very close to what's called a semi-stainless. It's not quite, but it is a much more corrosion resistant than some of the more classic or standard carbon steels like 1095, 01, 80 CRV2, yada, 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 yada. What we do is the more important thing is not so much the steel selection, but making sure that steel is optimized for its intended task. Does it have the right grind? Flat, hollow, convex? Does it have the right, height grind? Is it half height, full flat grind, whatever? The edge thickness before sharpening, or what's called thickness behind the edge. How thin do they take the steel down to at the edge before sharpening? And then what angle is the grind at? What angle is the edge at? And what type of grind or whatever is it? Whether it's a hollow grind, flat grind, convex grind, and so forth. The real point is you want to make sure you select a maker or a manufacturer that is going to optimize the steel, because all of those edge geometry factors combined with steel hardness are what's going to give you the performance of the steel, okay? You can have great edge geometry, you can have a great edge grind, you can have great thickness behind the edge and all this, but if you have very, very low hardness, like 52, 54 on the Rockwell scale, you are going to have relatively poor edge holding characteristics in most cases. If you optimize your edge geometry and then you have a hardness of 60, 61, 62, 63, depending on the steel, you are probably going to have a very good level of edge holding and durability on that knife, edge retention on that knife when it's optimized for its task. And those factors are all done correctly and optimized for the steel you're using. Some steels do better at higher hardness, some do at medium, some at lower hardness. So the point was, I guess some people got a little confused, or maybe I didn't explain it right, whatever. I don't care. I'm not here to debate it. I'm just trying to share the facts as a professional knife maker for a number of years, almost a decade and a half now. The bottom line is, don't just go for the one steel or the one manufacturer or the one level of hardness or whatever else. You want to get a steel and a heat treat hardness and an edge thickness and so forth, a grind that is optimized to get the most out of that. And the bottom line is now we are able to do that with some very, very high quality stainless steels that will give you fantastic results along with a very good level of corrosion resistance. So that is kind of that. Let me check my notes. Did I miss anything? I think that pretty much covers it. Let's go ahead and move on. Let's see where we're at on the time factor. Okay, we're not doing too bad. Let's jump in. We'll do these two stories. That is good. We'll do these two stories fairly briefly, and then we'll jump into our final wrap it up. So This one comes to us from the New York Post. A mother is charged with negligent homicide after her nonverbal son, 12 years of age, is killed by an alligator. The mother of a 12-year-old boy who was attacked and killed by an alligator after slipping out of his New Orleans home has been charged with negligent homicide. The picture should be up on the screen for those of you watching the video episode. Ilda Vasquez, 34, was arrested Sunday almost a month after her nonverbal son, Brian Vasquez, went missing, and nearly 2 weeks after his lifeless body was pulled from a lagoon close to the home they had moved into just weeks earlier, NOLA.com reported. The mother, who was previously convicted of abusing her son when he was a toddler, was also charged with second-degree cruelty to juveniles. Both counts carry up to 10 years in prison. An arrest warrant said as proof of the mom's failure to protect and check on Brian led to the charges. She failed to take, quote, appropriate steps to secure her residence despite her knowledge of special needs and history of leaving the residence, allegedly, an officer wrote. And while the boy's family blames the escape on him being nonverbal and autistic, his disability, he wasn't born this way. Allegedly, his disability was actually caused by a traumatic brain injury from his mother's abuse, allegedly, when he was just 3 months old, the documents alleged. He was removed from his home and from his mother, apparently, but at some point, the Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services returned him to his mother, police said. So basically, according to the article and according to officers, she had abused him, and he had sustained a traumatic brain injury, allegedly, from his mother's abuse when he was 3 months old, and that's what led to him being nonverbal and autistic. And then he was left alone. Is that what it was? He was left alone, apparently, according to the article, and he climbed out of his window. What happened? Apparently, he got out into the water there in New Orleans, and he had some blunt force injuries sustained by an alligator. Is that what it said? Yeah, he climbed out of a window around 5 a.m. on August 14 and was last seen less than an hour later on security footage wandering around outside in only an adult diaper, according to police and videos. The boy's remains were located by members of the United States Cajun Navy, a volunteer search and rescue organization, on August 26. That's 12 days after he went missing. Officials determined the boy drowned after suffering blunt force trauma during an alligator attack. The boy suffered a skull fracture, broken legs, and a collapsed lung. What a horrible, horrible story. So there you go, folks. I'll just leave it at that. Let's just move on. We go to New York, the Catskills. Hungry bear looking for food attacks man inside Catskills home. TheExpress.com. A hungry bear looking for food attacked a man inside his Catskills home. The man is hospitalized after the bear attack. His condition has not been revealed. He, however, was rushed to the hospital after he was attacked by a black bear on Saturday inside his home in upstate New York. The victim, a 63-year-old man whose identity has not yet been revealed, entered a room in his Greene County house where food and garbage are stored, where he then encountered a bear inside his home. The startled bear then fled, scratching or biting the man as it tried to get outside, the DEC said. The injured man was treated for deep cuts on his neck and arms and released from a hospital on Sunday. Officials then set up a trap and caught the bear. This is the part that I hate, and I'm not saying they're wrong. I just hate it when animals... The animal was later humanely euthanized, the DEC said. I hate it when animals get euthanized for doing what they do. I'm not saying they're wrong. You got to do what you got to do. The animal now has a taste for human flesh, or he knows how easy human targets are to subdue and kill and eat, yada, yada, yada. It is what it is, but I hate it when they go down for doing what they do. Just an unfortunate, circumstance. However, the man appears to be going to make it without without life-threatening injuries. Because you got to remember, wild animals don't play games. You see a lot of stuff on like social media, TikTok, X or Twitter, whatever else, of people trying to feed wild animals and stuff. Wild animals, if you're from the city, don't forget this, okay? Wild animals are different than domestic animals. Domestic animals, cats, dogs, and other things that people keep for pets, they're used to humans. They're used to human contact, and they are somewhat forgiving in their reactions. wild animals play for keeps. They will mess you up. And that's what happened with this bear. He was in this man's home. I guess he left the door unlocked. Who knows what? But the bottom line is when he felt he couldn't get out of the house or whatever, the bear tore this guy up on its way out, and he wound up getting euthanized. So rough situation. Now, before we go into our last story, I wanted to jump in briefly. How much time do we have? Where are we at? Okay, let's do it. We got time. Let's jump in. Let me get a sip here real quickly. Oh, okay. I wanted to encourage what's called a no electricity day to test your preparedness level. We've talked a number of times about being ready because right now we're getting ready to head into fall, and that means winter is right around the corner. You, as head of the household, leader of your family, male, female, kids, no kids, whatever, I don't care, it doesn't matter. Are you prepared to wake up with no electricity? How well would you do if you woke up and there was no electricity in your house? I'm not talking about for lack of payment on the bill. We're talking about power is down, ice storm, snowstorm, whatever, flood, natural disaster. How would you do? We won't go deep into this. We'll save for another time. And we've discussed this a number of times in past episodes. But what would you do? How well would you go? And the point is here to test yourself. How did I put this? We did this in a past episode to do a no electricity day. Basically means you don't have to do the whole day without using any electricity at all, but it's really about finding the weak spots in your game, finding where you are not prepared as well as you should be. Because guys, here's the thing about natural disasters, about floods, snow and ice storms. They don't care if you're a nice person. They don't care if you're prepared or not. They do what they do. So are you going to be prepared? One of the ways we talked about to make sure you're ready for this, can you go a whole day preparing your meals, preparing your coffee, your tea, whatever you have in the morning? I guess if you drink tea and you're weak, that's fine, whatever. But getting your morning coffee ready, preparing dinner for your family and so on, and then going through your whole day, can you do it with no electricity right now? If not, now is the time to prepare because fall is right around the corner and that means winter is coming. So just something to think about, give that some thought. And the no electricity days once a month or once every 2 months are a good way to find out, not just if you're ready, but it will show you if you actually go through the whole thing. Don't use any electricity the whole day. You will see where your weaknesses are, and then you can shore those up and be prepared because you owe that to your family. Okay, we go to our final story. And of course, we are headed to Florida. A hot-headed bartender stabbed patron after argument over bar tab and crude remarks about the victim's dead mother, according to cops. This story comes to us out of MSN.com. A Florida bartender allegedly stabbed a patron 10 times and made crude remarks about the victim's dead mother, all over a bar tab. Jason Wilfredo Rosario, 30 years of age, faces a charge of attempted second-degree murder in the incident that occurred on August 31st at, appropriately named, Grumpy's Underground Bar in Orlando, according to a probable cause arrest affidavit. Cops responded to the bar after being flagged down by a woman with blood all over her hands. She was in an alley when an alleged stabbing occurred. She walked back into the bar when a patron alerted her to blood all over her hands. The victim told cops, this is the person who was stabbed, the bar patron, told cops the argument began when Rosario allegedly charged him for drinks that were not served. According to police, the manager ironed out the situation, but Rosario was still displeased about the situation. Per cops, he kept berating the victim, saying, "You can over and over." Cops wrote in the affidavit, Rosario then made a comment about the victim's mother, who is deceased. That's some pretty colorful language, folks. The suspect allegedly walked away from the victim, but then returned and said they should take the situation outside. They did, apparently. Once outside, the two continued their verbal spat until Rosario allegedly said something about the victim's mother. That's when the victim punched the suspect, who fell to the ground, according to the affidavit. They then tussled on the ground, and Rosario pulled out a knife and started slashing the victim in the back. According to cops, Rosario allegedly said, "I got him," before it was all over with. The victim told cops the incident occurred so quickly he didn't realize he had been stabbed. Man, cops counted and noticed 10 stab wounds to his body, 7 to his left back area, and 3 others to the head. The victim was taken to the hospital, and the owner of the bar described Rosario as hot-headed, and she had been planning on firing him after he had worked just 3 shifts, according to the affidavit. Cops obtained an arrest warrant and took him into custody on Friday. He remained in the Orange County Jail without bond. His next court date is scheduled for Wednesday. Okay, folks, if you're in Florida, don't talk about people's mothers and make sure you pay your tab. That's going to do it for today's episode, folks. Have a good day out there. Get out there and take care of business. Get to it. Remember, don't wait till you have an emergency to prepare. If you wait, it may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.